Okay, now we're going to go one step deeper. For each problem, find the general formula, dy, and then find the delta y. That's the distance between the y1 and the y2, right? That's the change in those two values. So here's the general formula. dy is equal to the derivative times dx, and we did this on the previous one. So negative 1 over 2 square root of x, or x to the 1/2 power, whichever you prefer. And then we multiply both sides by dx. Now, the delta y, here is the general formula. Delta y is this original function, and everywhere there's an x, you plug in plus delta x, and then you subtract the original function. So let me go ahead and show you that. So think about that f of x plus delta x is the y2, subtract y1, and that gives you that distance. This is just kind of a fancier version of y2 minus y1, all right? Then, so we're going to plug that in, whoops, right here. I should have done that in a different color. So here's the original function right here. So negative, everywhere there's an x, you add a delta x, and then you subtract the original function, negative square root of x. Well, subtract a negative is the same as adding a positive. So there you have it, just like that. Okay, here's another one we're going to try. Remember, for these rational functions, when it's just 3 over the x value, because that invisible exponent is 1 and the visible coefficient is 1. So when you do the dy dx, it's just the opposite. So negative 3 over x squared, or do the quotient rule. If you don't remember that pattern, do the quotient rule. And so this is what the dy is equal to. Negative 3 over x squared delta x. And remember, this function needs to be in parentheses. All right, and now we're going to do the dy, the delta y. And remember, everywhere there's an x for the first part, you put x plus delta x, and then you subtract the original function. Well, these need to have the same denominator, so we're going to multiply this top and bottom by the x plus delta x, and this top and bottom by the x. And you guys know how to do that, so I don't need to write that down. So this is what we have. If we multiply this top and bottom by x, we have 3x, subtract, and this is x plus delta x. So remember, we're subtracting this whole thing, and then you do the distributive. So 3 times x is 3x, 3 times delta x is 3 delta x, and the denominator, they now share the same denominator, x times x plus delta x, and then you just simplify. Well, 3x subtract 3x cancels, and then what you're left with is delta y is negative, I just didn't move that out of the way far enough. There we go. Negative 3 delta x over x squared plus x delta x. And really, ideally, that the negative sign should be really put like that. All right, I'm going to pause this. Okay, now we're going to do a polynomial, and it's easiest to find the derivative. So the derivative of negative x squared subtract 4x is just negative 2x subtract 4. And then put that in parentheses and multiply that by dx. That's easy. But then you have to take this thing, and everywhere there's an x, to find the delta y, you have to plug in the x plus so. Where this x was, you have to plug in x plus delta x. Well, then you're going to have to square that binomial. Then x plus delta x, and then that's just a distributive. And then, because remember, this is, the general formula is f of x plus delta x, subtract the original function, which is what we did right here. We're subtracting the original. All right, I'm going to actually cover that back. Well, oh, wait a second. So now you have to simplify this. And remember, if it's a binomial squared, the first thing's going to be squared. So you keep the negative sign in front in parentheses. The negative sign will be squared. Then x times this plus this times x. There'll be two of those x delta x's. And then you square the second thing. Because remember, Pascal triangle, if it's squared, 1, 2, 1. All right. And then, yeah, I have to remember there's a negative sign in front of all of that. So you'll simplify one more time. And then we're subtracting this distributive. So we're subtracting for it. Oh, I'll simplify the next one. And now we're subtracting all of that. Well, subtract a negative is a positive. Subtract a negative, all of those get positives. And then we're going to pull all of these out. They'll all be negatives. Those will both be negatives. And then what you're doing, you're searching for, so you start down here with these. These are the ones that are going to cancel. So here's a positive one. There's a negative one. Here's a positive 4x. There's a negative 4x. There's a positive x squared. There's a negative x squared. All of those cancel. And what is left is what the delta y equals. Delta y equals negative 2x delta x, subtract the delta x squared. And the delta x, as soon as there's an exponent, the whole thing is squared. So you can't just put delta x and then square the x. So it has to be in parentheses, subtract 4 delta x. All right, so this is the intro video to finding the delta y, the dy's, and the delta y's. That's it.